In the drug epidemic that we're facing, as we are seeing record numbers of people losing their lives, help is drastically needed, with counselors and therapists working tirelessly and honestly working in a field with their clientele that's come to work on a problem that they don't think they have, to learn from people that they don't think they're going to learn from. It's one of those unique fields where people come in and they pay for something that they don't really want. The substance abuse field puts our staff in positions of long hours, poor pay, and sometimes disrespect from the people that were there to help. I do want to mention that it is a fantastic and a wonderful field for those who appreciate watching people grow. But it can definitely be a thankless job as well. Clinicians become the alibis for poor behavior from some. Burnout is our greatest downfall that we face if we don't care for ourselves. And I'm very excited to introduce my guest today, who is the very person that clinicians need for their self-care. So please stay tuned, and we will be right back. Trapped in a dream, archaic nightmare, taunted by past, climbing Everest without a rope, light without a meaning, week without a day. Hey, welcome back to High Wall Clean. My name is Eric McCoy, and I have no shame in my game. I like to get high, and I still get high, but just not quite the same way that I used to. And everything I was seeking on drugs and alcohol, I've actually found today, but I don't need anything outside of what my body already makes to get this highness that I'm talking about. Now, I have a great guest today that I am excited to introduce. I'm not sure if he's aware of this, but we are going to get high together. Now, with a pipe, syringe, or dollar bill to snort crap up our nose. No, just by talking, speaking of something that we're both very passionate about. You know, and pain, failure, and misery are the stepping stones to success. And actually, real quick, I want to clarify something really quick. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my book has been grabbed by another publishing company, and we're getting ready to have it republished. And the editors, and this now has been the second time that it's actually been recommended to me, although the first time I shot the idea down because I know what is best, and more than people have edited and worked with thousands of authors, even though this was my first book. Anyways, the name is going to change to The Stepping Stones to Success Are Pain, Failure, and Misery. And they think the positive should be the start. Although the point is that pain, failure, and misery within the context of the book are positive also. Now, in my book, I talk about my relapse after having 11 years clean and sober, which was caused by changes happening within me. 11 years, right? You're moving into puberty, right? Hormones starting to change things, voice changing. And although actually I was 40 at the time, so that may not have been the perfect blame. But check out my book if you want the full story. My guest today is MartinJon, who helps those who help. And this is very important since our greatest jobs as clinicians, and defined within ethics, is to always look out for the best interest of our clients. But as I teach for New Creation College in Southern California, along with being an addiction counselor and a consultant also for treatment facilities, I have a huge appreciation for what my guest does. Ethics, which is, again, our guiding force in the field, requires we put our clients first But for a clinician to put them first, they have to sort of switch that around and put themselves first. Otherwise, they won't be that effective. MartinJon has the experiential knowledge of substance abuse and then found his calling at some point. And I want to thank MartinJon, the recovery mentor, for joining me. How you doing, MartinJon?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen any of our shows, and I actually never told you how this actually works. There is a reason for this. There's really no real format for this show. I don't like to know too much about my guests because I like to be educated from the show. I'm a teacher, but more important, I'm actually also a student. And I like to be surprised or informed like our listeners are.
Yeah.
And to get us started, I was actually just curious about your experience with substance abuse and what brought you to decide to quit and change your life. And the only reason I know this is because I did take a quick glimpse at your website.
Yeah, and anybody can just visit martinjon.com. Love to have you visit and reach out to me. What made, it's funny, someone recently asked me, what can you do to help someone that's in addiction? And I had to be real honest, and I said, well, the short answer is nothing. Like, really, the one thing that you can do is just treat them with respect and give them the proper due that they deserve. And if they're like, I'm going to go out and use, get out of their way. Like, it's all right. They're going to use until they don't. And you can give, and the thing is offering that respect, offering them just true, open-hearted respect of just like, I love you. You're always going to be loved, but I might not be able to be here while you do that. But when you're ready, I'm open and willing to help you get somewhere. But respect and that love is the one thing that I think can help somebody just kind of grow out of their addiction. And it's emotional to me because when I was 19, someone looked at me and said, with like the most love that I'd ever felt, just looked at me and said, so how's that working out for you? Like, not to like ask that question in a sarcastic, how's that working out for you? But it's just like, how are you doing? And like, I just cried. Because I was miserable. I hated myself, hated everything about my life, hated it all. And that's what started me on a 7-year journey of trying to get clean and sober. So I was 19 and I went to my first meeting, didn't return to another meeting for 4 years. And I was on a pretty deep trajectory into the depths of my using, which, I guess you could say that my drug of choice was alcohol, but it was really just escape. And that was my drug of choice. And that's what I was doing at the time. And, I stopped. So I have 21 years clean and sober, and I finally kind of quit at 26. And what ended up happening was I actually quit at 26 and stepped outside of the rooms of AA and kind of did it without the help of AA. I already had a year clean and sober, and I slipped up and I relapsed for a day. It was literally one evening. I woke up the next morning and was like, oh, that's what powerless means. and at that moment, I also planted the seed of what I do now, which is talking to people about what is it you're recovering to. So I realized that I spent a year being clean and sober. Well, sober, because I was still using cocaine on and off during that year that I was not drinking. I realized that I was putting things down. I was not using. I was not as much. I was not drinking. I was specifically not drinking because, again, that could be determined as my drug of choice. And so I was putting down. And when I decided to have a glass of wine with dinner that last time I relapsed, because I was like, I want to be someone who can drink a glass of wine with dinner. And I ended up drinking 3 bottles of wine that night, and I only had one. So I had gone out and I had purchased these things while I was drunk, and I don't remember that. But when I woke up that next day and all that wine was all over the walls of my bathroom, I was like, oh, 1, this is what powerless to alcohol means. And 2, what am I going to pick up? What am I going to do if, like, my life isn't going to be about not drinking? My life isn't going to be about not using. And so that's when I planted the seeds about what I do now, which is this concept of recovering yourself and recovering to something, not just recovering from something. So moving forward into who you are and beyond that which you are living under the influence. So even before I ever took a drink, I was living under the influence of my parents, my teachers, the world that I was living in. I mean, I started using and drinking when I was 13. And so I had already was living under the influence of my parents, who, because I didn't do well in school, I felt like I wasn't well. And then my teachers, who, because I didn't do well in school, I felt like outside of that. And so I constantly felt like I didn't belong everywhere. And that's what I was escaping. And so the thing that kind of made me kind of clean up was that one moment when I was 19. And again, it took me 7 years to actually do anything that made a significant difference. But it was that one person looking at me in the eye and loving me that made it possible for me to get to that point.
Yeah, I've been working in the industry of substance abuse for about 20 years. With the little relapse that I had, a 6-month relapse.
Yeah.
Got really ugly really fast. Meth was my drug of choice. And in all of the years that I've worked in this industry, I've always been discouraged by how clinicians typically do it. So many of them, it's a directive approach. You have to do this, you have to do that. And what if it's not for them? And this is kind of the thing. When I work in industries, I teach very differently than most. As far as, I went through my first program at 16. And at that age, it's really challenging to really want to do it, and that's kind of within my book. Pain is our greatest motivator, but within substance abuse, the pain will eventually go away. And so,
and it's not a deterrent when you're at that point. Like, no, it's not like the pain is just kind of like, that's why you're using, really.
Yeah. Well, to avoid the pain. Yeah. But there has to be a point to where that pain supersedes, the continuing versus stopping. But the reality is that if people don't change that motivation, it's never going to last. They have to move towards the looking for something good or something better in their lives and goals and dreams, things they're moving towards, rather than, people get sober because of what they don't want, but stay sober because of what they do want.
Right. What they find. Right.
And I've always been so different than most clinicians. And
when I sit down with clinicians and I have to tell them, I'm like, look, sobriety is just a beverage choice. Like, you got to get these people, like excited about what it is that beverage choice is going to give them. Right. And it's always this thing where it's just like, I got this much time, and yes, okay, I can sit here and I say I have 21 years, but that don't really mean much. Like, what means the most is what I have built in that 21 years, not that I haven't drunk in 21 years.
Yeah, 100%. And I like your target, of who you work with, because, the clinicians or the helpers, like it said, you help the helpers, I think I saw that on your website.
I'm like my focus is for healthcare workers, or and we have to understand that we are all working as, like caregivers. We're all caregivers. We're giving care to our neighborhoods. We're giving care to each other. We're giving care to our family. We're giving care to our friends. And the thing is when I talk about like, I want to help caregivers, like the caregivers our caregivers, if I can get on a little soapbox real quick, like our caregivers are carrying so much of the weight in our culture right now, because our culture is overworking people. They're taxing people to a degree. The market taxes people to a degree that is unsustainable. And then we move to, then when you get home, like you go to social media, you go to Netflix, you go to all of these things that help distract you. And I call all these things pacifiers. We have a whole society of people that are all, I doped out, like I just on their own dopamine, because they're constantly like feeding that fuel of their pacifiers. And we don't talk about those as addictions. And yet they're sick. And as they continue to pacify, they're getting more stressed. They're getting, more addicted, and they're going to need help. And our caregivers are not supported the way that we like we're just shoving people towards caregiving and yet not supporting the industry. Yeah. And so, I mean, treatment, that's my big thing.
Treatment programs brutalize their clinicians. I mean, I've been, program director, clinical director. I've always worked very hard to, let everybody know that, if you're reaching that point to where it's a little overwhelming, please let me know, we'll get you some time off, we'll figure out ways that we can, help you, because it's brutal. I mean, you get huge caseloads, you get, I mean, they spend all their time listening to shit, horrible things, painful things, and then, it's hard for a lot of clinicians to let it go when they go home,
And I think that's the case because so many of them have lived through shit.
Yeah.
And so they see their clients and they're re-triggered.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times. I mean, the relapse rate too is high. For me, it was interesting because, I had owned a program in Anaheim. It was we did alternative sentencing, and I had a huge issue with my business partner. He was the finance guy, I was the knowledge guy, and I did not like the direction he was going in. And so we got in a huge argument. And I was like, all right, I'm out of here. He ended up buying out my shares and stuff like that, of the company. And so I went to work for this lady, Nancy Clark, who's a great lady. She does alternative sentencing also. And I took a huge pay cut, as a result of going from owning a company to, and I did a lot of her court liaison stuff, which I loved. I loved that stuff, but I lost my passion, and that's a lot of what happened with me. Was all of a sudden things didn't seem that important anymore.
Right.
I didn't feel like I was doing really what I wanted to do, because with my program, we had an amazing program. It was very good. I had great staff. I made sure that our clinicians were taken care of, and I loved it. And then all of a sudden, it was like, now I'm over here. What am I doing?
Right.
And the story kind of goes on. We rented a room to a guy because I was, my girlfriend, who's actually not my wife now, but we had rented a room to a guy because we needed money. And we knew he had a drug problem, but he's like, I've been sober for so long. And I told him, I said, look, if I think that you're using drugs, I'm going to go in your room, I'm going to find your shit, and I'm going to throw you the fuck out of here. I mean, that was my, my statement. Yeah. And I started seeing the signs. I went in his room. I found 4 glass pipes. I smashed 3 of them, but I kept one because I wanted to say, okay, here it is, get out,
Right.
And I forgot about it. I didn't see the guy for a while. I had a dream. I literally had the most visual dream of being high on meth, I could taste it. I mean, when I woke up, I could taste it,
Yeah.
you know, I could feel the high and I couldn't let it go. I mean, it was just that I lost my passion and here's my drug of choice that can help maybe get me through this difficult moment.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what sort of, you know, set me on. It took one hit. I mean, I'm the epitome of the meth addict. Sober, I have integrity. I love you. I care about you. I'll do anything for you. Anything you need. I take meth in my body. I will steal from you, rob from you, not care at all about you. And it was the most powerful thing for me because I was able to see it, you know, from all of the years that I'd done that. I mean, not at the moment when I look back, all those years, you know, being sober, clean, everything I did, and then taking that hit and where my life went like that.
Yeah.
And so I actually look at my relapse as a great thing just because of, you know, I always twist things into positives.
Yeah. You know, our failures, you know, I think, you know, we have this kind of culture of toxic positivity today where we're just like, think about, you know, like think about things, you know, in the moment as positive, but it's like, and try and stay, you know, like only think positively and stuff. And I really think that like looking at it and being able to admit, yes, that was my failure and it brought me somewhere, right? We have to be able to look at the fact that we've failed. We have come somewhere that we didn't intend to go, and we lost and we failed. But among that, and because of that, I was able to grow even further. And it's not separate. And you know, when you say fail or relapse, that's not a bad thing. Like, I interviewed, because I host the Recover Yourself podcast, and I interviewed this guy, Ken Bain, who's the president of the Good Teachers Association here in the United States. And he wrote this book about super courses. And he said, we provide more punishment for those who have tried and not yet succeeded than we do for people who haven't tried at all.
Yeah, it goes back to, you know, the whole Edison thing, right? I found 1,000 ways it didn't work before I found the way that it did.
That's right.
I mean, that was the premise too of my book, and sort of with the failure concept in there. You know, if you're in recovery and let's say you got 20 something years, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say you relapse, right? Mm-hmm. And you come back and you make it back in and you get right back on track, you're not a failure. There's nothing in there that says you're now a failure.
There's a quote that I have, like, that I've posted before, which is like, we provide, you know, like, it's not whether you succeed or fail that deserves like praise or disdain, but it is that you have continued to grow no matter which happens.
Yep. I mean, I look at this stuff, and to me, you know, I tell clients that you guys are the luckiest people in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, you get an opportunity to work on things that people out there, the normal people, the rich people, the people that just have it all, people that are handed everything, they never work on because there's no reason for it.
Right.
There's no pain. There's got to be, you know, until we have uncomfortability or we have pain in our life, you're not going to work on anything.
Right. And, you know, society hated our addictions. And so it was really easy for us to be able to look at that. Whereas, you know, if you have an addiction of hoarding money, ain't nobody yelling at you. You hoard away, son. Like, you have an addiction with like shopping. Whoa, let's not put that in the DSM-5. Like, we're not gonna put shopping in the DSM-5. Why? Well, kind of runs our fucking system. You know, like we're not gonna put, you know, entertainment, or, you know, we put games. We are sliding games into the DSM.
Yeah, we got internet addictions.
Yeah, you know. Internet, phone, and we are just shoving more and more things into your life that you can escape with, and yet we're just telling you to consume it more.
Yeah, yeah. The workaholics are praised. you know,
They pat themselves on the back and they, oh, I'm a workaholic.
Yeah, look at the money I'm making because,
Yeah.
now I can support, and buy these $1 million homes that
Right.
nobody really needs.
That's right. Like you don't need that kind of space. Like you need that kind of space because you feel so unworthy or whatever's going on, that we've had to face. That was the reason that we were escaping. Now they need to escape and they need to protect and they need to be secure and they need to, hide from, death. One of the wonderful things that I always say is that it's great because I'm living on borrowed time. I have 21 years. I didn't die 21 years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that I didn't die 21 years ago means I get to live on this earth longer. And being someone who's living on borrowed time, I get to do whatever I want. I ain't afraid.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. I say that, being a meth addict, for me to have acquired the diagnosis that I have within the DSM-5, I had to have committed a crime. It's one of the few, diagnoses that you have for a clinical disorder that I had to have committed a crime to acquire. Think about that.
Wow. That's so, yeah, that's a beautiful, like, I didn't know that. I don't study the DSM-5. So I'm not a clinician. I'm not a licensed.
Yeah. Because they have, they classify meth under, it's just an amphetamine use disorder,
Right. Oh, yeah.
And they're, opioid use disorder and, things like this, and they're illegal substances,
Right.
And so, I mean, it popped in my head one day. I was thinking about it. I was like, going, damn, I have to have committed a crime by using a substance that's Schedule 1, according to the federal government.
Right.
To gain this illness
status of an illness, right? And the thing is, like, you have to be able to, you have to have committed a crime and be able to either admit it or be caught for it, right? So, I love the DSM just as this is like, let's know that this isn't it. Right. Like, I always try and push beyond the DSM, which is why I utilize terms like pacifier and like, look, if you're like, most people don't want to just kind of sit down and say, yes, I'm addicted to something or another. Unless it's sugar, unless it's work, unless it's something that they can just,
right.
Like, oh, look at that. I got a sugar addiction. Whoa. But it's just like, no, bitch, like, yeah, you do. And sugar is probably worse than some of the Schedule 1 drugs that we have. Like in terms of addiction, like in terms of like, I know, so I have a diagnosis of MS in 2014. And in 2014, I got diagnosed with MS. I lost 80% of the motor function on my left side, which is all back, and I'm good and what have you. I just had an MRI and things are stable, and I don't take meds for it. So in order to medicate my MS, I have a diet, and my diet, I don't eat sugar. I had my MRI and I had a couple Christmas cookies afterwards. And I thought that that'd be fine. The next day, I had 2 more. The next day, which was 2 days ago, I had 5. And I realized that it's the sugar. The sugar is telling me to eat sugar. I don't want to. I didn't eat sugar for months. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, just because I had my MRI already, I'm going to have a couple. And then the next day it came back, and the next day, and it's like, that's addiction. That's addiction. That is living under the influence of this thing.
I mean, the truth is, everybody out there has some form of compulsive something. Right. Like, if you believe in God, right? God made us to get high. Think about it. Dopamine, right? Dopamine is how we get high while clean, right? and so we're made that way. Anytime something feels good, we naturally want to do more of it.
Right.
And I still smoke cigarettes, I drink Monsters. We'll drink coffee, in the morning, and I kind of I'm at a place where it's like, I know the consequences. I know, I make a decision for myself. The good thing behind smoking is that I'll never rob somebody or break into people's houses or do things like that, that are going to harm somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but we all make decisions, on what we're okay with and what we're not okay with.
Right.
And
that's and I look at all those things. It's like, yeah, okay. Like Monster Energy. It's great that you're aware of the fact that your Monster Energy drinks and your coffee and I like to say, so I used to smoke. I mean, right. I mean, I don't know if that can be obvious or not with all my history. So, and then I quit and then I started smoking cigars on the odd occasion.
Oh yeah.
Eventually that odd occasion became every day.
Sure.
And I went to a friend of mine and I was like, God, like, I'm not happy about this. Like that I'm smoking cigars every day. And he looked at me really just kind of nonchalantly and went, what? You're going to do it until you don't.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck all. Yeah. Like, what an attitude shift, right? As soon as, because I was judgmental about it and I was, and I was living under the influence of it. And then the judgment stagnated my ability to actually say, I didn't want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next time I went to the cigar shop, I was like, well, I'm going to do it until I don't. Am I going to do it today? And the judgment was gone because then I was actually making the choice, right? I was actually making the singular choice. Am I going to do this right now? And one day, not long after that, I said, no, I'm not. And I walked out. And I don't recall if that was the last time I did it. Maybe I had another cigar a couple weeks later or whatever. But then I was like, I think I had a cigar like maybe a month later. And I was like, what am I doing? I was just kind of like, this isn't what I want to do. And I hadn't had a cigar in probably about 3 years now. And it's interesting. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink Monsters. I don't I don't eat sugar.
Wrong with you, man?
Now, a lot of this also is because of my MS, right? Like it was going to take my walking from me, right? I was bedridden for a while. And if you're going to take my ability to walk, I'm not going down without a fight.
Yeah, I get that. How long did you smoke? Cigarettes. How long did you smoke cigarettes?
Let me think. I probably started at 23, 22, and I quit. Probably 12 years, probably 34, 35. I quit.
How much were you smoking a day?
Oh, I was smoking probably 40 to 50 unfiltered hand-rolled cigarettes a day, like a diesel.
Okay. How did you stop?
Cold turkey. It was cold turkey. And I literally I sat in a dark room for 2 days, like huddled in a mass, like my girlfriend and I quit right around the same time. And she was the impetus for my quitting because I hated smoking for the last 2 years I smoked. I was just like, I don't want to be doing this.
See, that's where that's where I struggle. I like smoking. I do. And that's always where I kind of come back to. But then I think, obviously with your health, it's not, obviously there's a lot of risk behind it. Yeah. It'd be good to be able to stop. And I tell my wife, it's like, the only way it's going to happen is they need to put me in a chemically induced coma for maybe a week. Because it's funny with, everybody thinks with smoking, I know physiological effects, I teach this stuff, but people think with smoking that, it's just such a great stress reliever. I smoke because it reduces stress, that kind of, and actually, no, it's not. You smoke to relieve the withdrawal symptoms,
right. You're at a place where in order to feel normal, you have to smoke.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's painful.
Yeah. It's those withdrawal stuff. That's all you're alleviating is the withdrawal because the half-life of nicotine is very short.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's ironic. And I smoke about a pack a day and I have for 20 something years,
What do you smoke? It was interesting. Like I hadn't thought about smoking in a long, long time. And I saw an old ad for Camels and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. like before I started hand rolling my own, I was smoking Camel non-filters. Like I was just like, that's right. And then like immediately as I saw like the non-filter pack and like the little soft bag and stuff, I was like, ooh, I can taste that Turkish, like I was just like, oh man, like it's so, I just remember it, like, and it was a thing.
Yeah. In 2002, I had been arrested 4 times in 6 months in 2001, looking at a lot of time in prison. And I got a way better deal than that. But I obviously didn't smoke during my entire custody time,
Yeah.
And when I got out, I was I'm not going to start smoking again. I'm not going to do it. And of course, one of the sentences that one of the parts of what I was ordered to do was to go to 6 months in a residential treatment program when I got out of custody. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody smokes,
Everybody.
I remember going. I lasted 3 days. I remember going there, and I'm just not going to smoke. I'm not going to do it, and everybody's smoking, and I love the smell of them. And I pulled I'm just going to have one. Right. Just gonna have one, dude. And I go to this guy, I go, hey man, is there any way I can just bum one cigarette from you? He gives it to me and I smoked. That was it. And I went and bought 1 pack and then I bought 1 carton.
Yeah. I know. Cause it's just like, I save a lot of money. I buy a carton. like I remember the first time I smoked a cigarette, I woke up the next day feeling gross film on my body and everything. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, why do people do this? I will never smoke again. By noon that day, I was smoking again.
Yeah, we're committed.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, like you said, like in order to feel normal, I have to continue smoking. And so like I woke up and it wasn't, that first day I had Christmas cookies the other day after my MRI. I woke up feeling the same exact way. Like I felt like my body was gross, my breath was bad, like all this stuff. And I was like, why do I do that? And by the time that next day ended, I had done it again.
Yeah.
And then the next day again. And by that, after I woke up that last day, I woke up and it was normal. And I was like, well, I don't feel bad. And I was like, wait a minute. I bet I do feel bad. I bet I feel so bad, but I'm used to it already. And I was like, I don't want to wake up and not recognize how shitty I actually feel.
Right.
And for you, like smoking, you wake up and you're like, okay, I gotta have a cigarette to start my day.
Yeah.
And I get that, but like the thing is you're waking up and you're feeling shitty, but you've been doing that for 20 fucking years. So you're not feeling shitty, you're feeling normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same thing people do when they wake up and they get their coffee. Without their coffee, they can't wake up. That's because the coffee is now the influence for your life. Like you are living under the influence of this.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference, you go back to the behavioral addictions and this is where people don't understand chemical, for people that have not been through it, the chemical dependency versus the behavioral addictions is the tissue dependence.
Right.
And so, you do a substance for a period of time, your body changes, your body adapts and it says, okay, we need this now to do this job.
Right.
And because we've got way too much of whatever they're putting in, that's going to kill our bodies if we don't alter and change. And so we go from homeostasis to allostasis, this new norm. And that's where people don't really quite understand with methamphetamine, if you've been doing a lot of it for an extended period of time and you stop, you are going to go into such a major depression. And truly at the diagnosis of major depression, that state of anhedonia where you probably just like to kill yourself.
Oh yeah. Like psychosis, like mental and audible, like hallucinations, like all of that stuff is part of withdrawal of meth. Yeah.
And you get to that, and what'll fix it.
Yep.
The thing that'll fix it and it'll take it all away. And that's what you do. I mean, it's like, how am I supposed to function if I'm going to feel like this when I have a solution that would take away it all?
That's right.
And that's where the difficulty and the challenging part is of stopping, for people.
Right. And, I always like to look at, sex and love addiction as well as being something, because sex and love is so innately driven by, chemicals in your body. Like when you feel that like love and attraction sort of thing, like you can, I mean, it's not going to give you psychosis. It's not going to give you hallucinations if you don't get laid tonight. And that's but sex and love addiction is the biggest behavior one. So when we look at this, when we look at like sex and love addiction is as bad as it gets for behavioral. I mean, maybe we can talk about like gambling and stuff because there's a big high there, but gambling is a, survival as well, maybe. But then you look at meth, you look at alcohol, which quitting alcohol can kill you.
It can.
Right? Depending on your...
And sedative hypnotics, benzos and barbiturates. Those are alcohol pills, And those are the only two real classifications of withdrawal that can kill you.
Yeah. And a lot of people want to say heroin, but it's like, okay. I mean, you can die of symptoms from heroin withdrawal, but you're not going to die from heroin withdrawal.
No, it makes you want to die. But.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, you can die from dehydration. You can die from other stuff like that. Yeah. But that's you can take care of that, where you cannot take care of benzo. Like if you're going to die from quitting benzos, if you're going to die from quitting alcohol, that's internal body stuff that you need people around to help with. So,
it's the ones that I actually see the worst that end up in the hospital for opioids is methadone. Methadone withdrawal. A lot of times they literally cannot hold anything down, including water, and so they end up in the hospital. Getting water,
getting forced. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's huge. And it's about just staying hydrated through the withdrawal period. And that's a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. And you mentioned sex and love addiction because that is actually what we see as the most common go-to for people getting off substances. Is they go from the dependency of the chemical to now I want to have a person that's going to help numb me and comfort me and love me and make me feel good. And that's the biggest battle we face with people in treatment. Right. They instantly want to go to sex, and especially the younger people.
Yeah. Especially today, I think with younger and younger people today, of like growing up with porn in their back pocket every fucking minute. Like, I mean, porn is just omnipresent right now. It is everywhere, and there are so many people making a living off of it. There are so many people that are dipping into it, and it's so accessible. I mean, there are games, there are and with the 3D stuff. I mean, I haven't experienced any of that, but I'm sure that's what it's interesting. The porn industry made DVDs. Like a lot of people don't realize this. We wanted DVDs so you can have different angles of certain shots. Like that's the innovation of entertainment starts in porn.
Yeah. I mean, it's I can walk down the street and watch porn on my phone.
Yep.
Just as I'm walking, while I'm driving, I mean, porn's everywhere. It's everywhere. At the tip of your fingertips,
Right. And nobody wants to kind of step up and be like, I have a problem with this. Not nobody. A lot of people are just kind of like, whoa, and we're losing connection with people.
Yeah. And the true diagnosis for it is extreme, because it has to have, negative, like drastically negatively affected your life, like you're late to work every day because you're jacking off,
Right.
You're destroying relationships, I mean, every literal symptom of chemical dependency, except for tissue dependency, you have withdrawal. You're thinking about it all the time. Your intolerance, you're watching more and more of it.
Right.
All the same symptoms. You lose family and friends. You're losing out on your social events, your work. You lose jobs. Everything that comes with chemical abuse is the same thing.
Right.
Ironically.
And yet we're not gonna say boo to it until you reach a certain level, until you have done something specific. And that's that's why I like talking about these things is, so when I train counselors and clinicians, I talk to them about porn. I talk to them about Netflix, because it's not, when you come home from work, you turn on Netflix and you go cook, and you got Netflix going, you got The Office going for the umpteenth millionth time, right? Like, and you're cooking your dinner and stuff, and you only have that on to have noise. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, what are you escaping? What are you pacifying yourself? And it's like, well, yeah, but one of my clients once asked me, well, what about if I just come home and I'm tired and I just want to chill out? And I was like, well, that's fine, but do you ever ask yourself why you're living a life that you need to escape from? Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Why do you constantly in this position that you have to come home and chill out or chillax just every day? Like, you've designed your life, mm-hmm. and you've designed it to, escape for 3 hours every night so that you can wake up and go through it again, so that you can escape for 3 hours every night. And when I work in my workshop and stuff, it's all about like, well, let's look at the triggers that we have in our day, because as a counselor or clinician, you're going to have a trigger walk into your office every day. Mm. Every day you're going to have a trigger walk into your office. And when you're triggered, so if you have a problem with, like, if your father told you your whole life, like, you don't pay attention, you're not, you do bad in school because you don't pay attention. And this phrase, pay attention, is kind of in your periphery. And then you're with your client, and like, you get distracted and your client says, hey, are you paying attention? Boom, triggered, right? All of that stuff is going to come up. Now are you going to be able to treat that person with respect and dignity? Because you're no longer working from a place of an open heart. You're now working from a place with blinders on. And we all know that feeling, right? As soon as someone triggers us, our blinders go on. All we can see is that one thing, and we can't open ourselves up. And so helping clinicians get to a place where it's like, look at your pacifiers. Where are you pacifying? Why are you getting triggered? What are you choosing in your life? And when they can do that, they can be like, when they can trace back the story, what ends up happening is they realize that, oh, wait, I only feel that way because my dad told me that I didn't pay attention. Actually, I'm paying attention just fine. Like, I was writing a note, or I was doing something, or he called me out, and he has the right to call me out.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of that counter transference, concept, where the clinician gets, either somebody looks like somebody or says something, mm-hmm. that resembles something that they heard from their father or something. And then it changes the relationship, between the clinician and the client.
Yeah.
I do, one of the classes I do is self-growth, and, like a self-growth and spirituality class for my, people working to become counselors, because that part is very important, as the self-growth. You're going to, and I tell my students all the time, I said, you're going to go into this, you're going to get into this job, and you're going to work there. You're going to have clients that are going to go tell you to fuck off. You're going to have people that are going to disrespect you. You're going to have people that, are going to create emotional problems for you if you don't control yourself.
Right.
And that's the big question everybody has or asks, needs to ask themselves is, am I in control or are they in control? Obviously we need to make sure we're in control.
And our clinicians are trained to know what in control looks like. So I often get a little, like we have to make sure that our counselors are being honest, mm-hmm. because when they are in the position that they find themselves in, they don't, depending on their personality, depending on what they're willing to be vulnerable with, it's very often that they can just be like, no, I got this. But it's like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Let's take a step back. Let's take a breath. Where is this trigger happening? Like, and it's like, I'm not triggered. And it's like, whoa, let's take a step back. Let's take a deep breath, and it's like, we don't we don't want to get triggered. And of course not. Why would we want to get triggered? But it happens. And if it's going to happen, we have to make sure that we are not, and in our society, our clients, those who are struggling with addiction can easily just, if we say that they did something wrong, society's not going to bat an eye.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts my heart so much. The idea that like, oh, they were bad before and they haven't proven that they're good. And so we're just going to, like I got upset, but I, as a counselor, got upset, and I'm just going to blame it on the fact that they came in and said something that they were well within their rights to say,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't land the right way, and very often in large treatment centers, the counselors are going to get the backing of management regardless.
Yeah. I mean, that's the important part, The real important part is that they have owners, supervisors, whoever it is that's looking out for the clinician's interest.
Right.
And trying to take
and the grand clinician's interest, the big interest of the clinician, not just to shield them from their mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's that burnout, obviously we talk about that, that takes people out,
Yeah.
And I've seen it get ugly with people, I've seen it very ugly, where people they've quit on the spot, just walked out, and it really didn't have to go that way.
Right.
Because, obviously that individual didn't catch themselves early enough,
right.
To be able to keep themselves in a place. I mean, I've been, again, in 20 years, I've been in this industry. There's not much that surprises me anymore.
Right.
I've seen so much, and I've been threatened by clients. I've been, and I learned, and it's cool. I learned at some point in time to really stop caring what people think about me.
Yeah.
That was really a big thing, because what became more important is what I thought of myself, and being myself. I mean, that's the whole deal. Is we got to figure out who we are. My book, my first line starts out with, "I killed that motherfucker," was the first thought that came to me that early morning when I woke in 2002 or something, and I put that in there because it always reminded me of, I lost myself many years ago, I killed me, whoever I was. And I completely lost connection with, values, morals, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of clinicians that work in this field that haven't even figured out who they are. Some of them, especially when they start early on in their recovery, even. I mean, I've seen people that have 1 year in recovery that are working in the industry, because that's always the go-to. I know it. I know the industry, so I'll be great.
Yeah.
And
I have experiential lessons and stuff. And
but they never figured out who they are, and so they don't have a real connection with themselves.
Right.
And that makes things very challenging.
Yeah. And that's why my work is called Recover Yourself. Because, and I believe that, as soon as you're born, you're living under the influence of your parents. You're living under the influence of your surroundings. And so if you're living under the influence of your parents as soon as you're born, that means you never got to really know who you were ever. Mm-hmm. You are like, I mean, if you believe in God or the universe, I don't care. It's just like, but if you look out and you say, hey, like, I am all of this, like the whole, like the opening of Lion King, the only thing that's greater than you, right? Like, and that's true. Like, everybody that's born, the only thing that's greater than us is God, is the universe, is all that is as a whole. But we are here right now and perfect as we are. I always like to say, like, don't let your definition of perfection rob you of yours.
Right.
You are perfect right now. And if you can be here and be you, not living under the influence of other people, places, things, or ideas, then you are you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, part of the thing is realizing too that there's nobody perfect. I mean,
Well,
imperfect.
nobody's done. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, within, because some people have that thing of like, oh, this person's just so perfect and all this kind of stuff, looking at other people.
Right.
And it's, we want to kind of reevaluate that. We're all,
And that's
we're all humans.
right. We're all humans and perfect in that. And that's why I like to say, like, don't let your definition of perfection rob you of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is like when we say that person is perfect, that's a definition of perfect that is robbing you of something.
Sure.
Right? Like you have a concept of what perfect is. If you can remove your concept of perfection and go, all that is,
Yep.
then perfection exists at this moment, even if you got a fucking stem in your mouth.
Yep.
Yep.
So, hey, I want to give you an opportunity to just tell a little bit of real quick about more specifically what you do.
Yeah. So there are two sort of offers that I have kind of constantly happening. One is my workshops. My workshops are professionally are open to both professionals and the public. For professionals, I offer continuing education units through NADAC as well as Illinois and Indiana licensing boards. So you can get those depending on which one works for you. Those workshops are entitled Recover Yourself. I will be putting a couple more in the pike this year, one entitled Triangulating Trauma, and one that is all about personas and building personas of people so we understand how to get the bigger picture of the lives of the clients that we're dealing with. And then I work with a limited number of clients one-on-one every month in a Recover Yourself process. I had a 20-year art career before I got into the healing world, and that art career has led me to do portraiture. And so like the beginning of our 4 stages of working together, I do a portrait of you. And that portrait, like a painting, like it's an hour and a half, the first session. And I do this oil pastel painting of you, and then I give it to you. And there's an interesting thing about artwork and portraiture in general. Like, I don't know if you've ever made art, but when you make art, like that piece of paper or that canvas changes from being a blank piece of paper to a painting. And it has a consciousness. And then you get to look at that thing and you exchange information about each other. You tell the portrait what it is. It tells you about yourself. And we utilize that connection that I do during the portrait. You talk to me about stuff, and then we utilize that connection as a very intimate sort of entryway to really looking at your triggers and what you can accomplish and what you can do in your life. And then after 4 sessions, I do some energy work, and off you go. The whole point, because I'm coming out of addiction, is to work with you in a way that is not going to initiate any sort of codependency. From the beginning, we know when it's going to end.
Yeah. Now you can do this stuff remote.
Yeah, it's all done. Well, it's not all done remote. I do work. I am partnered with a yoga studio here in Chicago. So if you wanted to work personally one-on-one, we can work in Chicago. But most of this has been done remotely.
Yeah. Because a lot of my listeners are
all over
around.
Yeah. And I speak Spanish and English. I always prefer English because it is my first language. So it's always easier for me to work in that language. But
cool. Okay. I always like to ask this question before we end is, if you had a message to those out there struggling, what would you tell them?
I think I would ask the thing that was asked of me. It's like, with all the love and compassion I have, I would love if you can answer, is this working out for you? Yeah. And that's it. Like, and if this is it and it works for you, you have all my love and compassion. And I hope that you get what you're looking for. Yeah. But if not, just recognize that. I don't want you to get help you're not looking for. I don't want you to do anything other than start from this place of recognizing that this is not this may not be what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. With all my love, like
Yeah.
that question is coming from. And that's what I would say. It wouldn't be a statement. It would be a question.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said on here too before, I've said that, you know, for all of those out there, you know, that are, you know, in pain or in suffering or stuff like that, I love you.
Yeah.
Because I know you don't probably hear that much.
Yeah.
You know,
And, you know, I've gotten to a place in my life where I love myself so much. I can tell you that I love you and mean it.
mm-hmm.
You know, like I think, you know, I don't think we say I love you enough. And sometimes I think we say it too much, but
For the wrong reasons sometimes.
right. And that's what I mean. You know, like we say it because we want something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people hear it from that place a lot because they don't understand what it means to love truly.
Right.
Like without, like, you don't have to be anything for me. Like, I'm not looking for you to be here for me in any way. I'm looking for you to be you in every way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. True love is nothing that, you know, I'm seeking anything for.
That's right.
You know, it's just something that I want
Giving
you to
you.
know that I love you, you know?
That's right. Oh man, that's right.
So it's, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's something that I believe in strongly, you know, with all of the clients I work with everybody I work with, you know, that it's a genuine care, you know,
Mhm.
appreciation. I mean, it was one of my, you know, appreciation is the strongest outbound form of love, the idea of giving of everything and asking for nothing.
That's right.
True appreciation, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll tell clients this all the time too, you know, I'll say, hey, I just want you to know, I appreciate you, you know?
Yeah.
Because, and I do, I really do, you know,
Yeah.
I always go into, as I was kind of saying in the beginning of this, is that I'm a teacher and a student, you know? And I genuinely appreciate working with these people. These people teach me stuff all the time. I love it when they'll say something and I'll even think, oh, damn, I've never thought about it that way.
Right.
It's good, you know?
That's right. You know, like they have these points of views because everybody does. And that's the thing. It's not just people with addiction and stuff. It's like, if you have spent any time quiet with yourself, you have you there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, I want to thank you so much for jumping on here.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to, again, another episode of High While Clean. As I always like to end this thing, keep getting high, but let's do it clean. I'll see you soon. Thanks.